We've all heard the story of Christopher Columbus discovering the New World. But what if I told you this wasn't some simple fairy tale? What if it was actually the highest risk, craziest startup investment in human history? Well, let's take a closer look.
Yeah, today we're going to look at this iconic moment not just as a piece of history, but through a totally modern business lens. It's a story that's absolutely packed with greed, fear, and a massive accidental jackpot that literally changed the course of the world forever.
So let's meet our founder, Christopher Columbus. Now, this guy wasn't royalty or some high-born nobleman. Nope, he was a weaver's son from Genoa, Italy, a self-taught sailor who had a huge, and as it turns out, a hugely flawed idea.
To really get his pitch, you have to understand the market at the time. Back in the 15th century, Europe was absolutely desperate for spices and gold from the east. The big problem? The land routes were blocked, and sailing all the way around Africa, well, that was an agonizingly long journey. So there was this clear, urgent need for a better way to get there.
And this right here was Columbus's radical, world-changing business pitch. Super simple, kinda elegant, and completely and totally wrong. Okay, now this is where we need to bust a myth we all learned in school. The story goes that people thought the world was flat. But the reality is, educated people at the time absolutely knew it was a sphere. The real reason the experts rejected his idea was because his math was just terrible. He drastically underestimated how big the Earth was, thinking Asia was just a few thousand miles to the west. He was basically an entrepreneur pitching a business plan based on completely wrong numbers. So, with a seriously flawed plan in his hand, he had to do what every founder does next: go find some investors.
His first stop was Portugal, who were basically the top-tier venture capital firm of the sailing world back then. Their experts ran the numbers, they saw the fatal flaws in his calculations, and they pretty much laughed him right out of the room.
So, desperate, Columbus went to Queen Isabella of Spain. And this slide really breaks down her calculation perfectly. What was the risk for her? A few old ships, some supplies, a small, totally acceptable loss. But the potential reward? Oh man, the reward was dominance over her rival Portugal and gaining control of the incredible wealth of the East. It was what we'd call an asymmetrical bet with an almost infinite upside. So she took the gamble, and it turned out to be the most consequential angel investment in history. So the money was in the bank, the product development phase could finally begin. But this voyage, it was an absolute nightmare, and it pushed every single person to the brink. Just try to imagine it. For over a month, day after day, you see nothing but an endless, empty blue horizon. Fear started to curdle into anger. The crew was totally convinced they were sailing off the edge of the world, or that they'd never be able to sail back against the winds. By early October, they were done. They were ready to mutiny and literally throw Columbus overboard.
In that moment of pure, raw desperation, Columbus made his final, crazy bet. He asked them for just 3 more days. He literally staked his life on those final 72 hours.
And then, against every possible odd, the most improbable gamble in the history of the world paid off. On the morning of October 12, 1492, just as that 72-hour deadline was about to expire, a lookout on the Pinta screamed the 2 words the crew thought they would never hear. Tierra, tierra, land, land. They had landed on an island in what we now call the Bahamas. But here's the crucial point, the biggest mistake of all. Columbus was absolutely convinced he was in Asia. He thought he had reached the Indies, so he called the native people he met Indians. And he went to his grave believing that massive geographical error. It's an accidental name that has stuck for over 500 years. But this accidental discovery, it had immediate and brutal consequences. And it was all driven by that intense pressure to deliver a return on investment to the Queen. The seeds of everything that was to come were planted on day 1. Right there, in his own journal, Columbus noted that the friendly local people he met would make good servants. Remember his business plan, it promised gold and spices, but all he found were small villages and parrots. That enormous gap between what he promised the Queen and the reality he was facing created immense pressure. And that pressure to show a return on investment led directly to the brutal enslavement and exploitation of the native people. And the irony here is that Columbus's own story doesn't exactly have a happy ending. He was made governor of these new lands, but he was a terrible leader, so brutal and incompetent that even his own Spanish settlers rebelled against him. The great discoverer was eventually arrested, put in chains, and shipped back to Spain like a common criminal. He ended up dying poor, bitter, and still arguing over his share of the profits.
So how are we supposed to see him? Is he a heroic founder who opened up a new era of global connection, or is he a villain who unleashed centuries of suffering? The truth is, the answer is incredibly complicated, but one thing is absolutely certain. His crazy, desperate gamble, a gamble built on a colossal math error, smashed two worlds together. And because of that one accident, our world was never, ever the same again.